I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates, Mina Kimes.
All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
You're muted. You're muted.
Hi.
There you go.
This is what we go through on an emergency podcast. When we pre-record, it works fine. When we don't, this happens. My computer's delayed, but that's okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. 9 p.m. off day, Wednesday. But we have some breaking Patriots news to react to here. Am I good? You got me now?
You're good. Yeah, I just said no days off. No days off.
Oh, no days off. All right, cool. I hear you talking. I'm making sure I'm here. Live Patriots Daily here on the CLNS Media Network, reacting to the Patriots trading away their best player in edge rusher, linebacker, Matthew Judon. We're going to get into all of it. We're going to get into the compensation. We're going to get into what the roster looks like now. We're going to get into who might fill the void, what they might do with the cap space they now have, all of it, other teams interested, etc. A reminder, we are powered by Game Time and we are powered by Prize Picks. Head over to Game Time and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Head over to Prize Picks and use code CLNS for a $100 or 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. Terms apply there. Paid the bills. We're going to pay them a little later, but first, let's get into it. Matthew Judon traded to the Atlanta Falcons for a 2025 third-round pick. First reported trade. The trade first reported by Bleacher Report's Jordan Schultz. The compensation first reported by ESPN's Adam Schefter. I'll give you my instant reaction really quick, and then I'll lay it over to you, Taylor, to kind of go through yours. Immediate thought before the compensation came through was, let's see what the compensation is, but I like them getting the monkey off their back with Judon. My whole thing, I'll lead it off here. I've said it on the show. I've said it on the radio. I've written about it. I've talked about it. This is a 2025 team and beyond. We saw that even more during Tuesday's practice. The Patriots don't have it this year. They don't have the juice this year. They're in a new rebuild. They're in the second chapter of a rebuild since Tom Brady left. They need some time. This year wasn't going to happen. Matthew Judon, if he's not in your plans for beyond this season, get rid of him, get what you can for him, and the Patriots did that. Third round pick comes in. Okay, now we're talking. That's a top 100 pick next year. You can use that building block, that chip, to move forward and really rebuild this thing. So that's just surface level, my thoughts. I think most people agree with that. But I'll hand it over to you to dive a little deeper, what you think of the deal and what you think of Judon ultimately not being with the Patriots anymore.
100%. I do want to say with the last practice, it's so early. We definitely need to make sure that we, are aware that things are bad, but things could change. But in regards to Judon, I'd say this is a best case scenario. I think we've discussed this several times because this whole, saga has been quite adventurous. But we thought they were going to get a 4th round pick as a best case scenario. And I agree. Now, potentially losing Christian Barmore with blood clots, that obviously compounds the loss of Matthew Judon because now you're losing your 2 best pass rushers. I'd argue that Barmore really is the best player on the entire team. Matthew Judon's still one of the most productive pass rushers in the NFL. So you do lose that with him. It's okay. You all good? All good?
I'm fine. My second screen is turning on and off, so I keep losing my light. But I'm here and I'm good and I can hear you.
Perfect time to bring up the tweets. Here we go. But looking at the position now for the Patriots, because long-term it works out for them. This is a team that now gets another pick in the top 100. They currently have 4. And if you want to be this team that's going to be drafting and developing, more picks inside the top 100 is obviously ideal. And Matthew Judon, I think the best case scenario, if he were to stay, would have been probably a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal with the second year, give him the option to maybe be released so we can test free agency. I thought maybe with the potential loss of Christian Barmore, we might see Matthew Judon and the Patriots reach some kind of handshake agreement. But now they get some more ammo for the future. Matthew Judon gets a payday, and he's going to get a shot at potentially getting into the playoffs and making a run because the Falcons are pretty loaded. Also, Braylon Trice, their 3rd-round pick, landed on injured reserve earlier this week. So I think that's what gave the Patriots and Elliott Wolf a lot of leverage in actually making this happen. So looking at the position, Anthony Jennings, I think his role was already pretty solidified. You already re-signed him to a long-term deal. He was an elite run stopper for you last season. Not going to give you a ton in terms of pass rush. I think at this point in his career, you're not really going to expect that. I think best case scenario was maybe he learns to be more effective on loops like we saw with Judon. Maybe that inside rush that Judon also used pretty effectively. If he can just maybe develop that a little bit more, give you something as opposed to, more pocket compression, then maybe, a little more diversity on those early downs, but still not a guy that's going to give you a lot of juice in the pass rush department. That should be Joshua Uche on these third downs and passing situations. But in terms of availability and play, he's just been so inconsistent since having that kind of breakout year in 2022. But he is on a prove-it deal. He has said that he feels like he's a better fit in DeMarcus Covington's scheme. Hopefully that works out and, health and all that kind of stuff willing, he'll be able to play more like he did in 2022 than he did in 2023. O'Shea Zannis, a guy that I had on my roster projection going all the way back to the end of spring practices. I thought that the versatility and the well-rounded skill set that he could provide would be a huge asset for the Patriots with the whole Judon contract situation being up in the air and really with just so many unproven guys in that front. So I think he's a guy who's going to be maybe a top backup at that outside linebacker position. But obviously one of the guys at the top of the list who I haven't mentioned yet, Keion White. Now, I think he's someone who traditionally would line up opposite of Matthew Judon or an Anthony Jennings or a Joshua Uche, those pure outside linebackers. Typically, the Patriots will have those guys on one side with Keion White or Dietrich Wise, and I think O'Shea Zannis too, as guys who could put their hand down or stand up. But in terms of on-field production, you're really hoping that Keion White is the guy who takes the big step up because he's going to be on the field, ideally, almost every down. He's going to spend a lot of pass situations inside. We actually did see, if you want to scroll to my clip where I talked about the film, Keion White only played 3 snaps. But again, as someone who's a projected starter, it gave you a little glimpse into what kind of fronts we could be seeing. So all 3 of the plays that Keion White was on the field for against the Panthers were 4-man fronts. Christian Barmore earlier, I think it was in the spring, mentioned that they're probably going to use more of those this season.
You want Keion White? I'm sorry, Keion against Denver here?
Oh yeah, we could, honestly. These are fun clips. But yeah, in terms of on-field production, Keion White is a guy who you're hoping to give you the pass rush, the run defense, and just be a kind of guy who can take on more of the load that you're losing from Matthew Judon. But at the end of the day, he is still a huge loss for this defense. It kind of brings you more to a 2023 mindset because obviously they didn't have Barmore. They didn't have Judon. You did have Barmore. You might lose him as well, but you do have Christian Gonzalez back. You have Daniel Ekuale back, who's a really key interior pass rusher for them. Zannis is more of like a Mac Wilson replacement, but I think he can also be used more on those early down situations more than you saw from Wilson, who was really more of like a pass rusher towards the end. And then, you really hope that the coverage can stand up. Like Jalen Hawkins, good addition on the back end. But this is a pretty tough loss. Instead of like a top 5-ish defense, I'm thinking this kind of knocks them down to like top 10.
Yeah,
top 12
I saw your tweets with Coleman about yeah,
because a front with Matthew Judon and Christian Barmore, like that's pretty nuts. That gives you a lot of juice. But now, if you don't have both of those guys, then you're going to need a ton of other people to step up in different ways. A little bit from Anthony Jennings, maybe. But again, hoping that Joshua Uche and Keion White can both have career years.
Let's all right. Deal, I guess. Let's talk about O'Shea Zannis. I'm curious on your thoughts on him and like, I guess looking at the position overall with some clips of Zannis on the screen as well. Like this is a guy who kind of was almost an afterthought. He was signed a little bit later on. He played under Drew Wilkins with the Giants, obviously. And is he only on a 1-year deal? Do I have that correct? Do you know off the top of your head?
Matthew Judon? Or is O'Shea?
No,
I think it's a 1-year deal. Let me double check.
Okay. So like when you look at a guy like this and you look at the Patriots kind of, blending in my take, and it's not really a take. It's really where this team is right now, where this isn't, I don't know how competitive, granted, they're going to be in 2024, but they want to kind of build towards the future. Is Zannis a stopgap guy, or is this a guy who you could see really shining out here and maybe signing an extension potentially and staying on and sort of being a real, I guess my question is, where do they go from here? specifically with Zannis, not only this year, but is he someone who you think can, kind of be here in the future?
I could see him being like a key role player for them. Like maybe he balls out in his rotational role and they're like, hey, we really like you in this role. Maybe test the market, see if you can get a bigger deal elsewhere. If you can't be a starter elsewhere, we'd love to have you here. And as we've seen, they usually give out pretty fair deals, but they do have their cutoff for those role player types. I don't think he is the long-term answer, like the long-term replacement for Judon. I think, he is, a more talented player than he was able to show last year. He played more in 2022. But I think really you want to turn to the draft. And now you have 4 top 100 picks. You can address wide receiver. You can address offensive tackle. You can address cornerback, which I think is going to be a sneaky need for them next season because of Jonathan Jones. And obviously, Marcus Jones is a guy whose health is always in question. And you can obviously add to the defensive front, whether that's a defensive tackle, get pass rush inside, whether that is the pure Matt Judon replacement. I think that's kind of going to be the idea there. But you also hope that Keon White, again, can maybe step up. And if he balls out, then maybe you just have him as the premier guy in that front, even if it's not specifically in that Judon role.
I will add to the context of the situation before we take a quick break to our friends over at Game Time. I will just add a report from Jeremy Fowler, who mentioned that the Bears, as well as the Texans, were also interested in trading for Matthew Judon. So that Elliott Wolf, Patriots front office, is of the mindset of doing nobody any favors, and that the 3rd round pick from Atlanta is the best price they got. I heard at the end, of Patriots Beat with Brian and Alex saying that, hypothetically speaking, because, Houston's the best team out of the 3 that was looking to trade for Judon. I think everyone can agree with that. Would you rather have made the trade with the Bears, or hypothetically speaking, if Chicago also offered a 3rd, would you rather have taken the Bears 3rd or Atlanta's 3rd? Like, do you think the Bears could be better than Atlanta? Or do you think Atlanta's going to be better than the Bears?
I think the Falcons will be better than the Bears because I think they have more veterans they're relying on, whereas the Bears, obviously Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, I think is going to be a great player, but you don't know for sure. Also, apparently Keenan Allen is 230 pounds.
Yeah, I saw that. That's insane.
What is that? I don't know what's going on there. But I think that maybe the Bears would have been better if it was the same pick. But also I think you want to do right by the player, and Judon going to a place like Atlanta, one, pop in town. Chicago is as well, honestly. You couldn't go wrong with either place. But you're going to a team that's has a better shot at legitimately contending than the Bears, obviously, who are going through. They're further along in their rebuild than the Patriots, but they're going through a rebuild of their own as well.
Yep, for sure. But again, all right. So again, just a quick recap: Patriots trading Matthew Judon for a 3rd round pick to the Atlanta Falcons. According to Jeremy Fowler, the Bears and the Houston Texans also were interested, but the Patriots ultimately make the deal with Atlanta. We're going to get into the rest of it. We're going to get into the cap situation. Our friend Miguel Benzon from Pat's Cap outlined everything. We'll talk about, again, still what could go, what they can do in the future here, what they should do with the cap space, all of that. But before we do, quick word from our friends over at Game Time. We'll be right back. It's the dog days of summer here in Boston, which means it's time to get to some games over at Fenway Park. This baseball season, I'm using Game Time to land my Red Sox tickets. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which means getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. It's super easy. You just open the app, click sports, and the games will be right there for you. Right now, you can get tickets to the Rollin' Red Sox for as low as $11. You can even buy parking for the game and check out your seat view right in the app. With Game Time, you can save up to 60% by buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy shows, theaters, and more. Get the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I'm unmuted. I'm back. That's Game Time. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. Maybe you go see an Atlanta game down and watch Matthew Judon. Maybe you watch the new look New England Patriots. They'll have Matthew Judon here. Either way, Game Time. Go check them out. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. All right. Let's talk about the cap situation. If I can have you actually pull up my screen on your end. Nope, that's fine. We need to bear with each other here because as Ahmed, our producer, texted us, I am basically working with a little Tykes laptop here on my end. Apologies. Things a little bit old. That's why my screen's going on and off, and that's why I basically need Tayler to have produced this show alongside me. But if we look at where the Patriots are cap-wise, because I think that's sort of the big indicator here now moving forward because, they got the deal done. I think everyone agrees. You got me? Oh, you have it. I'm sorry. I stopped sharing my screen. See, I'm losing it. It's late, but here we go. And Tayler has dark mode on. It's better on the eyes anyway.
Yeah, I got you, people. Mike is a psychopath and likes the light screen that burns your retinas.
Gotta stay awake, baby. Gotta stay awake during these late nights. But here's the cap situation with Matthew Judon. And as I was saying, I think this is where eyes turn now because everyone can pretty much agree the Patriots got good compensation back for Judon. The third-round pick is better, frankly, than a lot of us thought. You mentioned it earlier. Fourth-round pick was sort of on the radar. That was just the guess, but they get a third back. It's top 100. Everybody's happy. Atlanta gets an ideal pass rusher. So here's the outlook. Patriots now off the hook for Judon's 2024 salary of 6.5. And I'm just trying to kind of read this through, but basically, again, they're off the hook for his $6.5 million salary this year. So they end up with more money with, the high cap space that they already have. Is this something where I was just on 98.5 The Sports Hub with Joe Murray, and again, taking sports talk radio in Boston for a grain of salt and what they do, and Joe also being a fan as well as the night show host there, he's yelling and screaming that, well, now what are they going to do with the money? And, what are they going to do with the money? And Kraft's being cheap and they got to spend the money. And I kind of pushed back and said, let's give this all a chance to play out because it's so early in the rebuild. But you have to look at the money situation. So, are you of the mindset that they now need to flip this into what the chat has been saying and go getting an emergency an emergency fix a tackle and Charles Leno, or call David Bakhtiari and throw a bag of cash at him? Or is this still kind of hurry up and wait and let's see what happens here?
I don't think you just ever want to spend money recklessly. I don't think that's
right.
Smart. Also, I think we need to remember that this is not an attractive team to a lot of veterans. Like the Patriots have been saying that they were picking who they wanted to bring on board because I think they understand the importance of bringing in people who are going to buy into what you're selling as a rebuilding team. And on top of that, some of these older guys who are still on the market, they're still here for a reason. Like a lot of them, some of them don't want to sign with certain teams. Some of them just aren't that attractive to teams. And it's easy for us to sit here and say that they should sign them. But for one reason or another, whether it's age, injury, whatever, there's a reason that they're still free agents. So I think that obviously this feels like the year zero, and we keep calling it that because I feel like it's a year where you purge your bad contracts like Devontae Parker, Matthew Judon, not a bad contract, but, now you can eat some of that dead money. Juju Smith-Schuster in that exact same boat. They want to throw money around. I think the whole Kraft is cheap thing, do people think he doesn't want the Patriots to be good as soon as possible for obvious reasons? I think he's fine with spending the money as long as it's on good players and you're not paying people who aren't good, like Judon and like Devontae Parker, where you give them these crazy extensions and then you end up having to eat that kind of dead cap space. So I think this is the time where you take it on. They could sign people to big deals, but I just don't think those quality of players really want to come here. Ayuk is kind of an exception because typically money is enough to get a player to come somewhere.
Right.
Wanted clearly to go to Pittsburgh, or the 49ers want him to stay there. And then Calvin Ridley is a different situation because that's an older player who, has some issues that have kept him off the field, and you just don't want to invest 4 years and all that money into him. So I don't think, once again, they need to be throwing money around just because they have it. I think that's what, is the sign of someone who's kind of panicking. I think they understand it's okay if they kind of take this slow. Next offseason, if they can show that there is some ability with their young talent, obviously if the defense balls out again, even if they're not as good without the guys on the defensive line who are such difference makers, that's how you get yourself in the position to actually spend all that money instead of just throwing it in places where, in a year or two, it's going to look really bad because you had all this money with a player who didn't pan out.
And I just want to kind of give my take and read on the whole. And I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but first with Kraft not wanting to spend money, like you said, I don't know why it's still up. Owners make more money when their teams are good. When Robert Kraft is winning Super Bowls, they're you spend money to make money. That's how this stuff works. And I get some owners are cheap in different leagues and whatever. And
some are broke, like Mark Davis. Like some
Right.
owners really don't have the money to spend, but Robert Kraft is not one of those people.
Right. And so that's my overarching take on the money. The thing about the rebuild and the Patriots not being good this year, like everyone, and I get it because they've seen the Super Bowls and you want to be good right away. And it is now 5 years post Tom Brady leaving, but like, and it's almost, why hasn't Robert Kraft fixed this already? And it's like, did you want him to move from Bill Belichick a year earlier? Because it's like he made his decision, right? He gave Bill a year, maybe longer than he should have after 2-3 bad seasons because it's Bill Belichick and that was kind of baked in. And he made the Matt Patricia mistake and he made last year's mistake. And finally, he kind of put his foot down and ownership put their foot down and said, okay, we're going to rehire. We're going to hire a GM. We're going to hire a new head coach. These guys need a chance to work. Like, it's bad. Don't get me wrong. Should they have addressed offensive line differently? Maybe. Should they have, tried harder to trade up for Tyler Guyton? Perhaps. Is it annoying that we can't really evaluate Drake May right now because the offensive line is so bad? Absolutely. I agree with all of that. But at the same time, let's give it a little time. And nobody wants to be patient because they assume that Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo are a part of the same rebuild that was post Tom Brady the first time. You need to, frankly, I'm going to say it. Patriots fans need to suck it up a little bit right now and realize that this is a new regime, a new era. They're not going to fix this stuff in 8 months' time. They're just not. It's August. Like, it's August. It's not year 5 of a rebuild. This isn't Mac Jones anymore. This isn't the, spending 2021 spree for no reason anymore. This is a new team 8 months in. Give it some freaking time. Now, there was holes to fill. There was quarterback, wide receiver, and offensive line. They were able to fill 2 out of 3 of them this offseason. They went with Drake May. They went with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. They waited on offensive line. Could they have done it differently? Absolutely. But this is the way they chose to do it. You couldn't fill all 3 that early in the draft. Let's see. And if they get it wrong, then we can hold their feet to the fire. Absolutely. But right now, it is just way too early to already criticize this regime. That's my take, and I'm sticking to it.
And I do understand why fans are frustrated because there have been so many moves along the way where it feels like if they had gone in different directions, things could have gone differently. If you want to go to Tom Brady's last season, like he could have stayed. But actually, no, I don't know. The way that Belichick and all that stuff that went on behind the scenes obviously kind of deteriorated. But I get why fans are upset, but there is truth in what you're saying because this is a completely new regime. Obviously, there are a lot of holdovers on defense, but even they have, new people in different positions and new guys on the staff. Then the offense is completely different. You got a few key role players back, and leadership is different. So this is a very new look team, and you see it in the fact that they can't get certain guys. Now, I think the way they handled this whole Matthew Judon situation earlier could have been better because you dragged it out to the point where it was put in a position where it could become public and it could become controversial. Hopefully, just like we say with all the rookies, growing pains, you learn from your mistakes, you move on, you don't do it again. We've talked about Gerard Mayo even still kind of saying some stuff where he kind of goes back against what he says and puts himself in bad positions. But Elliott Wolf, for the most part, I'd say, has really been killing it with what he's done with this front office. Again, offensive tackle, I think you can nitpick, and I'm sure we'll nitpick until the solution is ultimately found. But they got themselves a guy with experience as a starter, and then they drafted the guy with the top 100 picks. So I really like what this front office is doing, and I do think fans
just
need to
time.
reorient their expectations and just give it a year. Next year, again, you have 4 top 100 picks, and then you have 4 premium needs. You can address every single one with those picks with the understanding that ideally the guys they pick this year to play key roles will also be further along in their development.
I totally agree. I'm in the process of trying to, here we go. Totally agree with all that. I think reorienting expectations for fans is key here. I think that if you are associating this regime with, the Bill Belichick regime and what they did, to not be harsh again, because I just told fans to suck it up. I don't want to say that you're wrong to do that, but I think you just need to again,
fans are spoiled. I think
take a step back and realize
you're spoiled. You live in Boston.
Yeah,
it's understandable.
It is understandable. You want to win now. That's the culture here. It's not just Patriots culture. It's Boston sports culture. It's Celtics. It's Red Sox. It's Bruins. Their passion. I get it. It's good to be a fan here. I think that there just needs to be, again, I think I like the wording there, the reorientation of expectations, because this is not bashing your head against the wall yet again with Bill Belichick, right? It's a new regime. It's new ideas. Let it work or let it don't work. Just give it time before you ultimately make your judgment. We'll wrap this episode up a little bit. We'll give some more closing thoughts. But first, I have a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy with over 5 million active users. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks, which is as little as 4 picks, turning $10 into $1,000. If you sign up today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. I heard Brian mention this, and I like the way he tied this in. Patriots are annoyed and with a rookie quarterback maybe not starting, but the Bears will be starting Caleb Williams. And right now on Prize Picks, you can get Caleb Williams to have 1 passing yard as one of your picks. And Tyreek Hill, you can also add him to get more than 90.5 yards in week 1. That's pretty easy, in my opinion. I think Tyreek Hill, he was just voted the #1 player in the NFL. Not a bad way to use your Prize Picks here in NFL in week 1 and moving forward. So download Prize Picks today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match bonus up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match bonus up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game. That's Prize Picks. Now we're going to get our final thoughts here on the Judon trade. I want to just, I wrote this down earlier and I'll loop back to it, and it has to do with the rebuild and where they can go from here because they now lose an edge rusher. Obviously, we talk about Jimenez and Uche and Jennings and, Keon White kind of filling in, but with now a first-round pick next year, a second-round pick next year, and 2 third-round picks next year, where do you prioritize edge rusher? Where do you prioritize defensive tackle? Where do you prioritize, everything? And I say defensive tackle because Barmore, you don't know his situation. Outside of Barmore, it's a little, it's not great in that room. So looking at those first really 4 picks, 4 top 100 picks next year, where should the Patriots prioritize their rebuild?
Way too early projections. Obviously, let's just get that out of the way. I would say the first one would be offensive tackle. Like at least with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, obviously Pop and Keyshawn Boutte, Tyquan Thornton, if you want to throw him in the mix. You have upside at receiver, whereas Caden Wallace, I do like him, but Chuks Okorafor is on a 1-year deal. So one way or another, you're probably going to need somebody playing offensive tackle. Now, there's also the complicated element of Mike Nwenu, where you don't, with Layden Robinson being taken with a pretty good pick, you'd think that they're going to put him at right guard and then have Mike Nwenu kick out, but it's kind of tough there. But I'd like them to just solidify offensive tackle if it is still an area of concern. Next up, I would go with wide receiver. I think every year you should be taking those guys in the first couple rounds just because they're so talented. And then with the third and the fourth, I would go either cornerback or defensive line, kind of depending on how the cornerback position plays out and how Keon White develops and all those things. But I definitely think the defense, especially in the trenches, they got a lot of guys, and I think they have a lot of good role players, but they don't have a lot of proven every down difference makers. So I would like to see that reinforced. And then obviously Christian Gonzalez locked in, but Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones, their health situations, you don't even know if Jonathan Jones is going to play next year. Marcus Jones can't stay healthy. Alex Austin is an unknown commodity, although we have high hopes for him. We think that he's very talented. And Marco Wilson, a veteran who's very competitive, but also not really sure what he is in a full-time role either.
All right. You sent me a message on premium positions. I don't know if you want to get into that. But if you know what, I'll let you continue.
Like the premium positions, I would say, are offensive
line.
Okay,
yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, defensive line, whether it's defensive tackle or edge and cornerback.
Yeah, all right, perfect. All right, so I guess I have one final question for you that I kind of wanted to end the show on. But before I do that, it's another kind of fun one. And it's not a way too, you said it was way too early to do those stuff. I agree. I know you don't like to deal in hypotheticals and the drama and stuff. So I want to say it's not really, this one's not a drama filled question, but it's something that doesn't really, I guess it matters in the state of the discussion. But do you have any final thoughts on Matthew Judon, this trade, where the Patriots go from here before we wrap this up?
In terms of Judon is, covering him, I didn't cover him for a very long time, obviously because of the injury. But other than that, last time he was at the mic and there was that whole weird thing with Jelani Tavai where he just kind of wasn't having it. He was a joy to cover. He always gave it to us straight. He was very funny, very entertaining. You knew it was never going to be boring. He treated us with respect for the most part. I know there was one time I asked him just how, he would like to see himself covered, just so I could have different perspectives and see both sides of it. And he was like, hey, man, I have respect for what y'all do. As long as you're respectful in the way that you talk about me, you have to criticize me. That's your job. Go ahead and do it. And as someone who, I have my inferiority complex, I don't like critiquing professional athletes on how they can be better, but understanding that they have that knowledge of like, you're doing your best, just, don't talk out of your neck. That was really cool. So he will be missed in that regard for sure. But at the end of the day, this is a team that's trying to get itself back off the ground. And I think that getting yourself a pick in the future with the guy who was very public in the fact that he wasn't happy with his contract and the team clearly wasn't even close to what he wanted, it was what's best for both sides. Now he gets his money. He gets a shot at maybe making a playoff run. And the Patriots, draft and develop team, get a little more ammunition to, do what they want to do and keep rebuilding this roster.
Yeah, I agree. A win for both sides. Patriots getting a third-round pick is more than we expected. Judon, like you mentioned too, maybe there's an extension in his future that he wasn't going to be able to get here. But it does stink, to see him go. I agree that he was fun to cover. Until this kind of last hiccup, it was never that serious. In a good way. I think, he was dedicated to his craft. He worked hard. He was, as Evan Lazar correctly pointed out on Twitter earlier, he was the best Patriot post Brady. I don't think there's any disagreement there.
Face of the franchise for several years. Yeah.
Face of the franchise, good with the fans. Until the debacle last week and not going out to sign autographs, he was always, kind of first out there at practice, running around the field.
He was out there like playing, messing around with fans during the preseason game.
Yeah. Right. And I think he enjoyed his time here. Him and Bill Belichick had a little, a good relationship there. And overall, I think he was a good guy to be here. It's just, it was wrong place, wrong time, or right place, wrong time. I think for Matthew Judon, I think he would have been prime, in those Super Bowl years, but a good guy here overall. And I think now he can go get what he wants. All right. Before we wrap this up, I mentioned that was the best Patriots player post Brady. He was the best Patriots player on this team currently. Who is now the Patriots' best player in 2024?
Best player or like their face?
No, their face is Drake May. I don't think there's a question about that.
I think it's David Andrews, honestly. Like, I think maybe publicly, but like Drake May's not going to be playing. I think if you're looking at
that's fair.
Who is the Patriots guy, maybe that's a little local to be fair. Maybe that's not. I think Christian Gonzalez, if we're talking like
best
the
player.
Whole nation, it's got, best player, it's Christian Gonzalez. Yeah, like it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I took this from Joe Murray. He wrapped this up with me as well on my hit on 98.5 The Sports Hub. But I went to Jabril Peppers. I think now Peppers is their best player. I think as good as Christian Gonzalez was last year, as high on him as I am, it's kind of no secret now. He's been up and down in camp. I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's him. But I think right now it's Peppers. I think he'll be okay. I just think we're still working on potential a little bit with Gonzalez. Right now, I think it's Jabril Peppers. But we'll see where it plays out. There's still a lot more to happen. There's some building blocks here, but Jabril Peppers being your best player, as good as he is, or Christian Gonzalez, the second-year guy who's only played 3 career NFL games, there is clearly a lot of work to do. So
I want to acknowledge Barmore. If we're talking literally everyone, yes, he is the best player on the Patriots. I said that earlier in the show. Just, he's not on the field right now for them, so that makes it Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, good answer. We're going to wrap it up, even though there is 2,000 of you across all platforms watching this thing, so we appreciate it. The support's been awesome. It doesn't go unnoticed. Me and Tayler text all the time in the background talking about, how much we appreciate the support and everything going on right now at CLNS and all of our coverage. So thank you guys for joining us this late at night for an emergency podcast on Patriots Daily, reacting to Matthew Judon and his deal to the Atlanta Falcons. Again, just sort of recap, Patriots trading Matthew Judon to Atlanta for a third-round 2025 pick. Patriots continuing their rebuild on that front. That's the news. Me and Tayler will be back tomorrow here on Patriots Press Pass prior to New England's preseason game against the Eagles. We're going to do a pregame show up in Foxboro. We'll watch the game. We'll have some reaction on social. So follow us on social at Mike Kadlick, at TKyles39. And then we'll have a postgame show as well, live from the field, just like we did last week. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to Patriots Press Pass here on YouTube and read all of our written work when it's there. CLNSmedia.com. Again, until tomorrow, thank you guys for watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll see you next time. Peace, y'all.
Oh, I got to end it.